Hello again, YouTube. Those who are sharp-eyed might realize that I actually am releasing two videos today. That one is going to be continuing the series where I said I was going to record all the music I had. That one is one of the first ones that I had written for my album, so there's going to be a lot of good analysis on that, even if the song itself is relatively short. But I had saw something the other day and I'd been sitting on it because I wanted to gather more information, and I realized since I'm already doing one video, I might as well do another one. And as the title suggests, it is something we should probably be a little bit concerned about. So first, a little bit of background. YouTube and Universal Music Group decided to get together what they call an incubation group of artists ranging from relatively newer, younger artists to even the estates of old artists who originally signed with them, to come up with some rules and regulations regarding AI created music. Now, there hasn't been much talked about that I'm aware of. I originally first read an article on it on, I believe, The Verve or Verge. I can't even remember what it is. It appeared on my Google feed, and I tried to get some more information. And then even earlier today, I went to Universal Music Group's actual website through another Google search of like, hey, YouTube Universal Music Group, what's going on? And they had a couple of the artists who are part of this incubation group kind of give like a little snapshot, like short bits, just to kind of like get their perspective on it. And nothing that I read really looked very comforting. I highly recommend that you guys literally, you can go to Universal Music Groups and you can try and hunt it down there, or you can just Google what I Googled, YouTube and Universal Music Group, and it's like the fourth thing down. Look past, YouTube. Look past Universal's YouTube thing and go to actual Universal Music Group's website, and you'll see YouTube AI partnership or something like that. So don't just take my word for what I'm saying. Like, please actually look at it, because I think I'm sure a lot of YouTubers, music YouTubers, are probably putting one in the chamber, getting ready to launch a video out. But on the off chance they're not, and I'm one of the only people who are aware of this, then maybe some word can be spread around, because I think a lot of YouTubers are probably more qualified to talk about this subject than a lot of people who, I'll just come out and say it, like Frank Sinatra's estate is part of this. I really don't think they have any information or knowledge whatsoever to help dictate something like this. There are some other older artists. Bjorn is part of this as well. I'm not really sure how they may feel on things. And it's not just because they're old, it's because there's an old mentality of thinking when it comes to recording, marketing, selling, playing, touring, all that stuff. And I really think it's YouTube itself that's going to be picking up the majority of this slack. I don't know what the partnership of Universal Music Group really gets from them. I don't know if they're owned by, a higher up parent company. I don't know any of that stuff. I don't care. But I really want to get something out there just so if there are YouTubers who aren't aware of this and they're music YouTubers, I think they're going to have a lot more to say about it, and it's going to be a lot more credible than just having this incubation group. So what are they talking about? Copyrights, okay? If you guys have watched one of my videos, I'm pretty sure it was actually the first one I starting this format, was I was responding to Samurai Guitarist's video about that Beatles AI song. And I kind of talked a little bit about how AI is going to change copyrights, but I didn't get into too much information with that. Copyrights work in a very simple premise with a lot of complicated execution. I'm not a copyright lawyer. I only have some things copyrighted from my work, so I know a little bit about it. But I'm also not signed with a record label. I'm not promoting and selling. I'm not advertising my work. It was just as a precaution, because a little something about my career. At one point, there was a band that wanted to buy some of my work, and I was hesitant about it. I wanted to get some people's feedback on it. And then I heard through the grapevine that these guys were kind of starting to poach my stuff. It turned out that wasn't a substantial thing, that it wasn't true. There was a bit of a miscommunication, because I was helping them kind of write a song, and someone had interpreted it as me like writing that song, and then they kind of took it. But it was okay. Everything was okay. The group's cool. I'm not mad with them and everything like that. But when I didn't know what the extent was, I ended up getting some of my songs copyrighted, and I did it through a very simple process, going through the bank, putting down some money and things like that. And it's not like a real copyright in the sense of like, here's a concrete thing that says this is yours. It's more of like a protection. When you do a copyright with a label, it's not for you. It's for the protection of the company or the distributor, which is, in this case, we'll say Universal Music Group. So your copyrights are protecting their interests, literally, of any finances that you get. You are always getting a portion of it because you are a creator, but not a distributor, not the manufacturer. We have to look at this like a business aspect. So you get a lower percentage than you would think, considering you are the one who actually created the music, right? That's just playing by the rules when you're with a record label. I'm sure a lot of you guys kind of already know a little bit about that, and I'm sure there are more talented and professional YouTubers who can go into way more detail on both working with a label on that aspect and the copyright protections. What I want everyone to kind of be aware of is that anytime an old world mentality gets into new world tech, it never ends well. I want to look at something that we should still kind of have fresh in our brains: MP3s, Napster, and musical digital distribution, right? So Napster came out early 2000s. We had access to free music, and a whole bunch of musicians got super fucking salty because they were losing a source of their revenue. Now, we didn't have Spotify. We didn't have any digital stream service. The closest thing we had was Apple Tunes, and that was a pay by song basis. It's 99 cents for a song. It was like $7, $8 for an album, and that was it. Like, you had unlimited access because you were basically buying a digital album. It wasn't a digital stream, it was a digital album. So Napster was throwing a huge wrench in everyone's works because it was basically free pirating. But when when the bands all got together and grouped up and made this lawsuit, what they were really doing was tackling a main issue of how the music industry basically pays you. And instead of using that as an opportunity to realize, like, hey, maybe we should revamp the system, they ended up just bulldozing the shit out of this new technology that had virtually no regulations, and then set a whole bunch of old world regulations to prevent something like pirating. And granted, I'm not really a fan of pirating, but at the same time, if you're a huge fan of somebody, you're going to buy their work one way or the other. If I need to go and I need to YouTube a song because I'm trying to learn it, or I just want to come up with something, and like I just want to hear music, I don't always want to go and open up my Spotify playlist. I don't even like using them. I don't like using digital streaming platforms, and I'll get into that in another video. But I have at least half of the albums from any artist that I like. I have personally bought and helped support them. I have t-shirts, I have some posters. Any artist that I support and I love their music, I have bought something. Maybe that gives me an excuse to not buy everything that they do and to find alternative means to listen to their music. But at the same scale, I know the millions and millions and millions of plays that they're getting on Spotify is not paying at all. The thing that's getting them money still to this day, even after the pandemic, even after all this new technology and this new way of thinking, is through touring. And you know what? I've never had enough money to really afford to go to see any of the artists that I like who are still playing. And to be honest, I'm probably never going to want to pay $1,800 for a decent ticket. And if you're going to go to a concert, I don't see the benefit of sitting way in the back in the nosebleeds when you probably could have just, went on YouTube when the concert was happening and someone would live stream it. Is the audio quality shit? Yeah, but guess what? So it is in the way back of the seats too. So not that I'm trying to stomp on anybody or anything like that. If you want to go and you want to be there and I see it, I totally understand. It's a great experience. But tying everything back together, that was a huge setback for the music industry. And then when streaming platforms like Pandora, Last.fm, all these early ones started coming out, it took them a long time to find their stride, not because of the technology, but because of all the rules and regulations that ended up going around. We basically ended up taking an FCC style level of censorship and applying it to a radio format. So we had radio that has basically existed since the 20s, and we had the FCC, which has existed, I guess it's around the TV, like 40s and 50s. We have two old world mentalities governing a brand new form of music distribution. And we're going to have that again. Maybe I haven't gone into great detail with some of these things, but I hope I'm just getting you guys a little bit of an idea of like why this is concerning. This has left long-standing impacts for musical distribution today because of something that happened in the early 2000s. We are going to have a similar outcome if we do not have music YouTubers, YouTubers in general, and even some actual artists who have a little bit more play in the game. I'm not talking about artists who are signed with labels and they're touring and they're doing stuff. I'm talking about people who are actively using AI generated music with YouTubers who are actively creating AI generated music. Maybe this is one of those times where it's the smaller scale that's really going to get a bigger impact than the bigger scale. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the one making this video. I want big music English is hard. I want big music YouTubers to see this or at least hear about it and think like, oh, hey, maybe I should do some independent research, find out what's going on, put their personal opinions in, and then kind of see what this little cauldron of opinions is going to do. Because I'm really concerned that these estates are going to just, not just the estates, sorry. The estate of Frank Sinatra is one of the big things that bothers me. Bjorn is another thing that bothers me. There are some artists who I'm not too aware of, Juanes, and like Druid or DR4XD or something like that. I don't know. I was going to keep a little note of all the names, but I decided against it because, again, I want you guys to do your own independent research too. But some of these younger artists already have been saying things I'm not really appreciative. I mean, one of them was like, a lot of people would consider my opinions very controversial, but I'm going to come in with an open mind. All right, well, that's like saying, hey, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but go fuck yourself. Like, it means the exact same thing. If someone's already coming in explaining that they have a bias one way or the other, it doesn't matter if you say you have an open mind, right? That's not the only artist I'm singling out. Like I said, the older mentality of the music industry, Bjorn in the 70s, Frank Sinatra's estate in the fucking 40s and 50s at his height, and then when he died was in the early 90s and shit like that. Or maybe the 80s, actually. I don't remember when he died. Pretty sure it was like 90s. Whether they're active or not, what I'm worried about is how the music industry hasn't virtually changed since those artists were at their peak, or those artists were alive and they were doing stuff. All right. AI generated music is a tool and a resource just like Pro Tools, right? It sounds so fucking stupid, but it's really kind of that easy to simplify, right? Back in the day, we used to have an actual mixing board, and we used to plug in everything. We used to have all of our mics. We have to do all our volume checks, and then we fucking play. Now we don't need to do that. We can use an interface. Or we can do the mixing board, still record everything, plug it into the interface after, and have an easier time editing everything, right? Or you could just do the home studio approach, get a Scarlett and fucking plug in, play, do your shit, do your basic editing, do your basic mastering. AI generated music is that, and you can have an actual finished product. That's kind of the difference between these things. Yeah, someone who puts in a lot of time and dedication, they can use Pro Tools, GarageBand, Avid. They can use all these like lower tier programs. And I say lower tier as in they don't have the most experience. So not that they are low tier peripherals. And still come up with a decent product. AI generated music is allowing that as well. Sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, they want to write a little piano melody. They want to hear what a lyrical set will sound like. And then they plug it and they create their own music with it. So it's an audio tool. Other times they're literally just banking on, hey, this is my preset. I want to hear a Beatles song. Like I want to hear what John, Paul, and George singing this melody line sounds like, and they plug it in, and then they turn it into something, and then they release it out into the world. Now, do I think people who use this platform should get paid? No. Do I think people who are listening to this music consistently, all right, whether they're getting views on YouTube, whether they're getting plays on Spotify, do I think that artist should be getting some of that revenue? Yes, there's a difference, right? I don't support people who are going to just suddenly decide to use AI generated music as some form of audio engineering, okay? If they want to just get a hobby going and they go and they do it, cool, all right? If they're going to actually put it out there, then okay, all right, how many views are you getting, right? maybe we should have a little bit of a limit here, because if someone releases something that gets like a couple 100 million views, that's a lot of pennies. I mean, that is how much you're getting paid, but 100 million pennies is still fucking 100 million pennies. You know, where should that money go? I think we should have a partnership with these AI generation platforms, and we should be able to have its own musical distributor through them. This is some future-esque shit, and I probably should have opened this earlier in the video, but there's a progression here, right? I think ChatGPT, for example, all of these platforms need to have separate distinctions. They need to have one for art. They need to have one for, academic. They need to have one kind of almost like what Wikipedia tried to be by having all these different forms, but it didn't end up really picking up steam. And now, everyone uses Wikipedia, but, this is another platform to kind of go on. When I was in high school and middle school and Wikipedia was a thing, no one took that shit seriously. Now, anytime I need to know basic information about something, I'm using Wikipedia. I don't care. Like, yeah, anyone can edit it and change it, but we have to trust in our fellow man, right? And that's kind of what this AI stuff can do. Like, we can build a whole new trust in our fellow man by realizing, like, hey, I am helping with the creative process, even if I'm not the creator. And I think by having a built-in distributor with ChatGPT and all these AI structures, you can be able to have a system in place so there's a source revenue both parties can appreciate. So if you used ChatGPT to help you create your song, well, we'll give two scenarios. One, they helped you create the song. Two, they did create the song and you sell it. One, if they helped you create the song, it's now by a percentage base. If you wrote all the instrumentation and they just helped you with the lyrical content, 75-25. If they helped you with some of the instrumentation, but you ended up singing and put all the other instrumentation by yourself, 50-50. If you made the song completely through AI, then it should be by a distribution percentage. So 100% of the revenue, creation-wise, they would get, because the AI platform did all the work. All you did was the command prompts, right? But the distribution aspect of it, okay, are we posting it on your YouTube channel? Are we posting it under your music Spotify playlist? Things like that. That's where you start getting a percentage, and that, I think, should be, not surprisingly, a lower percentage than if you did contribute and you played, or you wrote lyrics, or however the end product ends up coming out, you contributed more work than it. So that is going to be a difficult process, 100%. And I do think there are some merits to having a giant music corporation like Universal and YouTube have this, I don't know why they call it an incubation group. It just sounds to me like it's a polite way of saying we're getting all these higher end musicians who aren't really going to do anything at all. Like a think tank. Like, all right, what are you going to fucking think about? Like, these are problems that aren't going to get resolved overnight. They're not going to get resolved over with a group, whether it's all new musicians who have been using AI or old musicians who have been dead for 30 years and we've been using their estates to handle all their musical stuff. It's not going to fucking happen like that. This is a process, and we need to build on this process. And we need to talk with the AI creation systems, the developers of those AI creation systems, and the creators or the command prompt input of the people who are, capitalizing off of this. Because I can really see a slippery slope where it's like, hey, I'm just going to type in something, throw it up on YouTube, and hopefully I get YouTube famous and I get some income and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't really have a problem with that in the theory aspect. I love that everyone's creating. Since the pandemic happened, there have been so many artists, musicians, videographers, social media influencers. All these people have come up and just, had turned their lives around in the sense of like they just did something. They took a hobby, they took a passion, and they did it. Fuck yeah, I love that. That's awesome. What I'm not going to appreciate is someone deciding that, hey, without any musical skill whatsoever, I'm just going to keep flooding the market with all this generic, safe music. Well, guess what? That's what pop radio does anyway. We don't need a fucking AI program to help us to do that. But I get the draw, because you're still helping create. And maybe some people really have a passion for this. I'm going to use a little bit of an example here, right? I used to think vaporwave, chillwave, synthwave, all that stuff was a huge joke. And from what I gather, when it first came out, it kind of was. Because to me, it didn't really sound like you were a musician. It sounded like you were just an audio engineer. And maybe you could play an instrument, but if we're looking at an actual definition of what a musician is and you don't play an instrument, well, you're not a musician. One could argue that's not music. I wouldn't go that far, but I wouldn't take the genre seriously. However, it's actually one of the genres that I love listening to the most when I'm out on my walks or I'm taking my long drives. I just love fucking chill wave. It just has like this nice kind of like almost mathematical, nostalgic, like Sega Genesis sound vibe that like is really chill. Hence the name, chill wave. And it requires a lot of intelligence with audio engineering and taking these instruments and making it all flow together. The MIDI that comes from it. I can see myself kind of hating AI music the same way because there's no musicianship. There's just someone who puts in a command prompt, types it up, and it goes out and it does something. I will admit that is an old world mentality right there. I should be rolling with the punches, realizing technology is going to change. I mean, there's going to be instruments that come out in the next 10, 30 years, and they're going to just be like jokes, memes, but people are going to create music with that. And it was the same thing when guitar was first created in the 1500s. It's the same thing when digital keyboards first came out. People aren't going to take them seriously until they're in our music. And I think Chat, GPT, and other AI-based platforms are going to be a new form of instrument. And we need to be aware of that because it's not like we go into a store and we buy an instrument one time and then it pays dividends. And it's definitely not like, hey, I'm going to release this out there and I'm going to get some percentage points because, how Spotify, YouTube Music, all of them do their distribution. There needs to be a little bit of regulation and there needs to be a lot of review. And I'm concerned that Universal Music Group and YouTube may not be the best partners to go through that. So I know I've kind of been all over the place and I probably could have structured this a little bit better, but I really hope there's a handful of people out there who either use ChatGPT or other AI-based platforms to create music, or there's some music YouTubers who may not be aware of this, who hear about this in passing, and now they can go and do their independent research. They can get their own opinions out there, and we can have a really good discussion about where this is going to go, because I think we've actually been kind of pushing this problem off for a little while now. Excuse me. And I think they're trying to keep this down low so that way YouTube can be fucking YouTube about it and screw over everybody like it's basically going to, and how Universal Music Group can continue fucking over its artists the way it's been doing for 70 plus years. Do we want to keep that process going? Because trust me, I would like some old world stuff. But when it comes to the music industry, when it comes to censorship, when it comes to distribution percentages and the amount of money you make from your content, I don't fucking want that old world shit at all. It's not applicable. All right. We have technology. It's here to stay. It's going to manifest itself, and we are going to have to address this problem. And the more we are involved, the better it's going to be for us. So don't let this be one of those things that slips under the radar, and then 10 years from now, we're fucking reviling in the whole situation when we could have been doing something about it. Get the message out there. Talk with other musicians. Let's see if we can come up with something that benefits everybody, because that is the whole point of a program like AI generation. All right. And my soapbox with this little thing, right? We now have the capacity to develop, channel, and create everything in seconds. The only benefit is that it goes into a system, and that system learns more and more and more. They keep saying, oh, well, no, it's just output. It's not input. That's bullshit. You can't be having a program like this learning for 14 years and tell me it's not, gaining some form of sentience. We'll put it like that. I'm not a futurist. I'm not a computer person. I'm not an AI person. But you're spitting in my fucking face and telling me it's not going to happen when it's already happening. We are losing our sense of control over how this is going to happen. So, by having a little bit of rules and regulations set and how AI is going to take part in our lives, even if it's just something like a hobby perspective or a artist perspective, right? That still helps us. It helps us as the common man, and it helps musicians who are going to continue using this platform and just, you know, come what may with what it is. Some people may just turn themselves to complete AI generated based music creators. Some people may just use it from time to time, like, how a kid wants to write an essay now. Why are they going to write a whole essay out? They can just type it up on fucking ChatGPT and boom, it's done. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when I'm thinking about writing lyrics, it would just be really nice to fucking put something in and then just get all the lyrics that I would need, and then I could just focus on the song, or vice versa. I don't know if I'm going to become one of those musicians. I don't know if I'm going to become one of those command prompt input guys. But having that option is always going to be there. And if we don't keep an eye on what's going to happen and help be an active part on how it's going to progress, we're going to get fucked over again like the label's been doing for so long. And people who make some serious money off of this stuff on content-based platforms like YouTube, you guys are going to get shafted. You're going to find out that you don't have the rights to this music at all, and you're not going to get a penny. Or you're going to get a tenth of a penny, and that YouTube is going to get the majority of your money. We don't want that. So please leave some comments down with some personal opinions if you guys have it, and really just spread the word. Get this out there. Like, there is nothing that I've heard so far from any major YouTuber about this, so we need to get this shit going. Please spread the word. Do what you can. And let's see if we can come up with some good positivity about it. Take care, everybody.